When a small town in Kentucky is rocked by a horrific family murder, questions would come up around the family's adopted son and how he was the only survivor. Okay.
Let's go.
Cadiz is a small town located in Kentucky, USA. But I do say small town because, well, in the 2020 census, it confirmed the population being 2,540 at the time. This small town was also a base of Union and Confederate operations during the Civil War. Fun fact, not so fun.
Not so fun at all. Are you on, what side are you on?
I haven't looked, I actually do not know enough about it. I know the two sides, that's as much as I know.
You know what the Confederate side was on, right?
No.
Reserving the rights to have slaves.
Yeah, I knew there was a bad one and a good one.
They're the bad ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the bad guys. Yeah, I need to educate myself a bit more. It is a small town that boasts one of the lowest crime rates in Kentucky and is described as a nice little town with a lot of historic homes.
Tell that to this family.
Within this small town, there is a family that has lived there for many generations, and that family is called the Champion family. Lindsay and his sister, Lisa Champion, grew up on the family farm. Lindsay was described by friends as being very funny with a dry sense of humour, who could never say anything bad about anyone. I love me a good dry sense of humour. I do.
Same, I find them funny.
He would meet his wife, Joy, when they attended high school together, and not long after graduating, they would marry in 1972.
Oh, nice.
High school sweetheart.
High school sweethearts.
Joy would go on to become a teacher, and she was described by family as being exactly what her name was, Joy, just full of joy. And Lindsay would go on to work as a director of a farmers' credit union. The couple were known as good, God-fearing people and had involvement within their church. However, they were missing one thing to their seemingly perfect life, and that was...
the biology to have a child.
Yes. Unfortunately, Joy would suffer a lot of loss with having a fair few miscarriages, and sadly the couple found it very difficult to fall pregnant, so they decided to go through adoption. Ryan was born in September 1978, and the Champion family would adopt him just a few months later, and they were absolutely smitten with him. 5 years later, the couple would be shocked to find out that Joy was pregnant and had no complications in the pregnancy and carried to full term before delivering a baby girl in 1983 called Emily.
Amen. You know that was the work of God, right? That was the work of God. Yeah, hello. She couldn't have babies. All she had was miscarriages.
What are the odds of that though? Hey, like so many miscarriages, you go and adopt, 5 years later, boom.
Just a small 5 years later.
Yeah. With the arrival of Emily came some sibling rivalry. Family members said that the Champions treated Emily and Ryan the same, however, they did not get along all the time, with family members noticing that whenever Emily received attention, Ryan would do almost anything to get the attention back on him. Growing up, they would start to take somewhat different paths. Family would say they were both bright and smart kids, but Emily was more ambitious than Ryan. The picture of Ryan that was painted was like him always hanging out with his mates, going partying, whereas Emily was studying and applying herself where she could. Now, I know we both have no idea what it would be like growing up knowing you were adopted because your parents couldn't have children. Then bam, a miracle child comes in. You'd start to feel on the outside, I would assume, like you don't fit in, and especially look-wise. And it's a little ironic because Ryan had red hair and the family brown, but I'm sure it'd be very difficult to go through that. Not making excuses for anyone, I'm just saying, pointing out.
Sorry, difficult for what? Being a ranger? Is that what we're saying?
No, to say like you were adopted.
Or do you mean like there are two different ways in which you don't fit in that sort of, not biologically connected to them in that sort of way, but then also they look kind of similar, they have similar features, and you have freckles and red hair.
Yeah, and to me it was kind of that if you know your parents were having trouble falling pregnant, you were possibly going to be the only child. And then bam, they've been able to have their own kid.
I guess, but he was 5?
Yes.
So I'd assume that like a 5-year-old would have time to kind of grow out of that, you know? You're 5. To me, it's kind of like, to me, it would have been worse if he were maybe like 13, 14. Then a biological child came in, then it's an issue. But if he's 5, and by the time, you know, Emily's older and whatever, and he still has issues like that, that's not going away.
Yeah, something going on.
Something's not right.
I also couldn't find anything to say what his relationship was like with his biological family or what happened there. But yeah, as we were saying, I just find it very interesting the psychological effects that would have on a person, I would assume. Anyway, I digress. Although Ryan didn't really know what he wanted to do with his life, he would go on to join the army and actually end up serving 8 years, which I can't even imagine doing that.
8 years?
Yeah, being in the army for that long.
I can. Oh,
I can.
Listen, I'll serve my country.
So he was discharged from the army, and now being in his mid-30s, he moved to Western Kentucky in a city called Oak Grove. I found American town names so lovely. Like, I'd love to live in a place called Oak Grove.
Yeah, there's something quite magical about the way some of the places, like Kentucky.
Yeah.
Even just the name Kentucky to me sounds kind of cool. Connecticut, Mississippi,
Illinois.
Moulin Rouge is a movie.
Moulin Rouge.
Who knows? You know? Kentucky, Texas.
Texas.
Paris, Texas. That's amazing. California. Yeah. I was thinking that I said it. I went, no. Alaska.
Yeah.
Do you know that Alaska was purchased for $20,000? It used to belong to Russia.
Far out, really.
The more you know.
The more you know. It looked really beautiful too, because, you know, we are country gals at heart, we are.
That's right.
This place is also near the Fort Campbell Army Base, and dear Mung Beans, if you have an army case you would like us to cover in the US, please click on our link tree or visit linktree.com/winetime mysteries and click the suggest a case and tell us who you would like to do the case and if you want to shout out and thank you. So Ryan moved to Oak Grove.
All right, see you, Ryan.
Emily's life was a bit different to Ryan's. She graduated from Auburn University, which is actually the #1 university in Alabama according to the university. And by 31, she moved south to Louisiana to work as a horse veterinarian at a racetrack. My kind of gal.
Yeah, well, you are a horse girl.
Mine and Jamie's kind of gal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Joy and Lindsay retire in their 60s and just live out their life, have some fun. Towards the end of October in 2014, Emily would come back home to enjoy some family time and, you know, just do a little thing like run a marathon on Saturday, October 25th. She wasn't the only one who was busy, as that night her mum and dad went to a friend's birthday party as well. Can you feel a lead up happening? Can you just feel it? Can you feel it?
Yeah, I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Oh, Lord. The following morning, Lindsay and Joy would attend church. However, Emily decided to stay home because, you know, she just did a little marathon the day before. And I'm sorry, but Emily sounds like such an amazing, accomplished woman. And she loves horses. Like, you come home to visit your family. Oh, I'm just gonna do a marathon. Just hang out with the fam. Like, all right.
I cannot imagine ever being fit enough to do
a marathon. Same.
I mean, go for a walk. I don't know.
October 26, 2014. It was said to be a really nice day. Beautiful blue skies, no clouds during fall or autumn, as we say. So the weather was just good. After church, Lindsay and Joy would return home, and unfortunately, that would be the last time the Champion family was seen alive. Now, Lindsay's sister, Lisa, lived just across the road from her brother. They both had land, and it's a little bit of a distance away, so you'd kind of drive over there, or you could walk, but it would take a little while. But yeah, when she exits out of her house, she can pretty much see her brother's house in the distance. Now you might be thinking,
why are you telling me this, Ashley?
Well, around 11 a.m, Lisa would hear gunshots coming from her brother's house. Remember where we are, America, so shooting at a random time wouldn't be as weird as hearing gunshots in Australia unless you're in the country, but still. So Lisa did think it was a little odd being knowing the time of day to hear the gunshots, but
Yeah.
I guess living possibly on acreage, a bit of land.
Vermin,
Yeah,
predatory animals and stuff. It's kind of normal.
could be anything. Not long after hearing the shots, Lisa would hear shouting at her front door. Rushing down to the front door to see who was calling her name, Lisa would find her nephew Ryan. He had a pistol in his hand, and it was strange because his wrists were taped with a small amount of duct tape, and he was yelling for her to call 911. So that's the kind of case it's going to be today, doll.
My favorite, and when I say favorite, I mean least favorite, is when the perp, and I mean obviously I'm jumping the gun here, but when the person who comes forward that has been tied up or restrained in some kind of way turns out to be like the assailant, that's my favorite thing.
You're going to love this. Now, apparently some people hate listening to 911 calls on podcasts, so you can find it online if you want to hear it. Apparently people have issues with it. I like hearing them. La.
But do we not mind hearing it because we are
like it.
from Australia?
Yeah, maybe.
Or
Why don't you guys let us know? Do you like listening to 911 calls in a podcast? Like, not a long amount, but just to show.
If you don't, I'm more interested in knowing why you don't. So if you don't like it, please, can legitimately just even one of you listeners, please tell us, because I want to know. Because then if you hate it, we just won't put them in.
Yeah. On the call, Lisa didn't seem too upset. She was more shocked and also stated in the 911 call that her nephew was at her door, his hands were tied, and he didn't appear to be injured, but she just didn't know what has happened. While she waited on the 911 call, Ryan started to let a bit of info out. He told his aunt that a guy that was interested or obsessed with Emily busted into the house. Lisa would ask Ryan, "Do we need an ambulance?" And he said, "Yeah, we need an ambulance." During the call, Lisa told the operator that she was going to head over to her brother's house to wait for the police and ambulance to arrive. So after giving the details, I guess she just kind of hung up. After she hangs up the call, she removed the tape from Ryan's wrists and they drove over to her brother's house. Upon parking out the front of the house, Lisa asked Ryan, "Well, where are they?" To which he just answered, "They're in there." Confused, she asked, "What do you mean in there?" And Ryan replied with, "You don't want to go in there." She gets to the front door and immediately sees a bullet hole through the window. This would also be the time that she makes another 911 call, and it is so awful to hear because you can hear the panic in her voice. She says, "Oh please, my brother has been shot and his wife Joy. My nephew is here and my niece has been shot." This poor woman has walked in to find her brother, sister-in-law, and niece in what can only be described as being gunned down in their own home. I can't even imagine how horrific that would be.
Okay, hold on. So they want us to believe that, or this little wants us to believe that someone busted into the house with guns, right? They've shot 3 people who live there. None of them, I'm going to assume, are tied up. He, however, is restrained and has the pistol and was able to make it across to his aunt's house and take her back over there. None of that makes any sense.
Just wait till you hear the rest
I'm sure,
of it,
I was going to
doll.
say, I'm sure it gets worse. But you are guilty. Case closed.
Especially a small amount of duct tape.
I would pay to see what that. I wish she had taken photos of it and maybe left it on, because it would not have looked like. How would he have done it? Ay ay ay.
Not long after, emergency services arrived at the Champion home. One of the first responders at the scene was former County Sheriff Ray Burnham, and Joy Champion was actually his elementary school teacher.
Oh,
Just goes to show how small the town is, /
Small
how
town.
known the Champion family was. And I saw videos of him and he was still distressed 10 years on. Due to what the Sheriff's Department was now facing, the state police came in to help, which I love because, especially in the US, you hear stories of police not wanting to help out counties. And to be honest, what is a county? Is that a suburb? I need to educate myself. So I must say, good work to the police getting the help right at the start of the investigation.
good job.
Now, I didn't pause, but I kind of slowly crept up on my soapbox, so play. Even one of the Kentucky State Police officers said it was the worst crime he had seen in over 20 years. So let's get to the unfortunate scene. Lindsay, who was 62 at the time, was found outside on a concrete landing, which sounds like the veranda or something to the side of the house. He had gunshot wounds to his head. Inside, they found Emily, who was only 31 at the time, and she had duct tape on her face from her nose to her chin and then wrapped around her head about 7 or 8 times. Her hands had been duct taped together and it was wrapped again a fair few times as well. Her feet were also taped and she had 2 bullet wounds to the head.
Okay. So this duct tape, that seems to be overkill as far as what's put on Emily, you know? Like wrapped around her face, from her nose to her mouth, everything. And then there's only a tiny piece on him and he's not even shot. He's not injured in any way, shape, or form. So then that made me think he obviously taped himself after she was taped and he probably just used what was left because he didn't think about that at the beginning.
The duct tape plays a major part in the
Well,
case.
it would do, because here's the other thing as well. Fingerprints, and not just fingerprints, but hair, skin, all that kind of stuff. It's a very sticky substance. So I'm twitching out. I really am.
He's twitching. Joy, who was 60, was found slumped over and had been shot in the face. I cannot imagine what they went through in their final moments. And as police were looking around, strangely enough, they found another body. A body that was actually unknown to the murdered family. He was laying on the floor, also shot.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I told you this one's a bit of a twisty-turny, doll. Obviously, police headed straight to Ryan, the only survivor of this horrific scene. Surely he would have some insight to help police find out what in the actual heck happened to this lovely family and who this random guy was. Ryan advised police that he was just at home chilling with his sister because, she was off resting after the marathon. Anyway, all of a sudden, they heard someone come into the house, obviously not expecting their parents home due to them being at church. At the time, Ryan and Emily were in the living room, and all of a sudden they see this man walk in. And strangely enough, Ryan said he recognized this guy. This guy was 22-year-old Vito Rizzavato. Vito had a handgun and a roll of duct tape, and strangely enough, Ryan had actually known Vito for only a few days, and Ryan said he was obsessed with his sister. Ryan told the police that Vito pulled the gun on him and said, "If you do something stupid, I'm going to hurt your sister." Ryan was then duct taped and told not to move, and Vito said he wouldn't hurt anyone, just don't do anything stupid. Vito then proceeded to tape up Emily, and around this time, Lindsay and Joy arrived home. Ryan said that Vito ran out the side door, and then Ryan heard gunshots outside. Vito then ran back inside and pointed the gun at Emily and then shot her twice. He then made his way towards Ryan. However, it was at this point that Ryan decided to make a move and was able to wrestle the gun off Vito and shot him once in the head. So that's the story that Ryan has told the police.
Okay, this is feeling staged.
Being a small town, word got around pretty quickly about what happened at the Champion house. Family and friends started arriving around the house and everyone started questioning what happened to this amazing family. A family that was known around town for being just good people. They didn't have any known enemies, and the way they are described, I don't think anyone could hate them. So officers wanted to start to investigate and find out who Vito was. And apparently he was easily identified due to a birthmark that he had on his face. Not a lot of info was found other than he had a small child at the time. When Vito's family and friends found out about what had happened, they were genuinely shocked. They did not think he was capable of it. He had no criminal past, nothing. As investigations went on, police were pretty sus around Ryan and his story. Ryan had said Vito was in love with Emily, so why did he shoot her? And how did this short turnaround of 3 or so days turn into an obsession? Lisa was also a bit sus on Ryan, and she said the moment he came to the door, something didn't feel right. Now, Lisa, I have to say, I just got a good vibe from this woman. I saw a couple of interviews with her. She said she was sus on the obsession story and stated, Emily is a lot like me and takes a bit to warm up to. I mean, this woman may be single or married, but she has her family name and her own house. Like, she just seems like a very put together woman. It later came out that Vito actually worked worked for Ryan at some point. After getting discharged from the army, Ryan started doing odd jobs like construction, you know, that old thing. He hired Vito because he had a small child and must have been out of a job and, you know, kind of needed money to live. A few days earlier, Ryan took Vito over to his parents' place to get some tools. And then Vito saw Emily and he fell in love. Ryan actually got a bit scared about how Vito was acting about his sister, and he even started saying some rather inappropriate things about her. When this happened, Ryan said he felt so uncomfortable that he decided to let Vito go. And he was like, "Do not talk about my sister like that." Just this Ryan guy just seems like a great, you know, standing up for his sister.
Great guy. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Now, what is one thing I love to have in my cases? Your eyes lit up then. You're like, okay. Which one?
Just one thing? One thing you'd love to have in your cases. A twist?
I do like twists, but no, not that.
Okay, give me a clue.
Oh, if I give a clue, it's to do with like a family murder. Something around what happens normally. Men, or I don't think I've had any women yet, but men who decide to go on TV and talk about the horrific
Interviews.
Murder
of
their family.
I remember now. You hate those. You love and hate them.
So yeah, it is out there, but be warned for the infuriating video. Literally a day after the shooting, he was on local news. He showed no emotion really. He looked super stiff, and he spoke about how good his parents were, and this was not the only news story he did.
Of course not.
So family was just a bit like, what are you doing? There's an investigation going on. A day after your whole family has been murdered? Excuse you. No. Whilst that was going on, officers spoke to Vito's roommates. Yeah, he didn't live alone. It was here that they found out some rather interesting information. You see, they said he was down on his luck and needed some money until one day he came home super excited saying, "Someone has hired me. My baby will be taken care of and I'll be taken care of."
Oh.
He was going to get paid $30,000. And do you think he told them what the job was?
Probably not.
Oh, he did.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. He said a man named Ryan had hired him to kill 3 people.
What?
The friends did not take the story seriously. And guys, if your friend says they are going to kill someone, maybe you should tell someone or let the police know, because you never know. So he told them what he was going to do. And they were just like, yeah, okay, cool story. Like, sure. The officers in this case did a really good job. I think because they took Ryan back to the scene 3 days later to do like a 2-hour reenactment. And surprise, surprise, nothing was logical to what he was suggesting had happened. Now, I'm not going to go into details, but what also undid his story was talk around the gun. He made the move while Vito was changing the chamber, something, and the officer was like, well, that doesn't add up because the gun you used in the murder could only hold 7 bullets. 4 were used on Lindsay and shooting at him, 2 at Joy, and 4 at Emily. So, quick maths, that's 10. So they said, how could he have been reloading his gun after killing everyone, and that was the moment you decided to pounce? These police were just on it from the start. "I'm sorry, Kentucky, you did good." The officer even said this to Ryan, and Ryan answered, "That isn't possible." And the officer was like, "Ryan, it's simple maths." Boom bish.
Ryan, you're dumb.
Yeah. He's like, that doesn't work.
Doesn't make sense. But
it's maths, Ryan. It's maths.
It's funny though, because like if it is a chamber that could only hold 7, like he would have had to swap it out after 7, and then he had like another 3. So
doesn't add up. Ryan said after this, "I don't know what to say to that." To which the officer stated, "I bet you don't."
burn.
They did so good. I was so proud.
Burna.
He was taken in for more questioning, and then it turned into an interrogation. Ryan said, "I didn't kill my family," and the officer said, "It's not about if you did, because we know you did, and we're going to prove it."
Mm-hmm.
Of course, more evidence was needed to show a clear motive as to why and how. As I said earlier, the duct tape would add evidence, as Ryan continued to say he was tied up first. These officers then went to the duct tape that was at the scene to prove that Ryan was taped up last by showing it matched the tear at the end. You, sir, deserve a raise. It is a perfect match. So they were able to prove that the last piece of tape was used on Ryan. Somebody's lying.
Ryan.
It's Ryan.
Spoiler alert, it's him.
He did it. Family were on to Ryan as well. They all thought he was lying, and at the time he was a free man. Family didn't want to say anything because of the investigation. They wanted to make sure justice was served. 5 days after the murders, the funeral arrangements were made, and the family discussed they were scared to have Ryan there. Police were able to arrest him before the funeral due to the weight of the duct tape evidence. Ryan was arrested and charged with the murders of Lindsay, Joy, Emily, and Vito. He was also charged with kidnapping due to what he had done to Emily by bounding her. When the rest of the family found out that Ryan was arrested, they were all actually at the funeral home, and there was a video I saw where she called everyone in. She's like, he's just got arrested. And even though it was very morbid in the home, they were all so happy that, they could finally grieve and get over the loss of their family. Before his trial began, police received a tip from a man who frequented a Waffle House. Anyway, he said he actually saw Ryan and Vito and some woman at the Waffle House a few days prior to the murder. Police were able to obtain footage of exactly that. 5 days before the murders, Ryan, Vito, and some unknown woman went and had breakfast. Now, this mysterious woman would turn out to be Anne Plotkin, a woman who backed Ryan's story of Vito being obsessed with Emily. And Anne knew Vito because he had dated her daughter. And my lord, I do not want to judge, but this woman has had a hard life. She looks like a shady character, and yeah, she also went and did a few TV interviews. Like, honey, no. She looked like she was on something, like a methany.
Methany.
Yeah.
Crystal methany.
It came out eventually that Ryan and her were in a relationship, and investigators brought her in for questioning, and they were like, hey, would you have any texts with you and Ryan and Vito on your phone? And no word of a lie, this bish whips out her phone while she's in there, and she goes, no, there's not, and starts tapping away. She was literally deleting messages as she was being questioned. You can see video footage of her being like, no. And the officer's like, what are you doing? And he's like grabbing her. Like, she is in the interrogation room. Goes, no, I don't at all. Turns to the side, like out of a freaking movie, and just starts deleting the stuff really quickly. Phone records and Facebook records were pulled from all three accounts, and immediately police saw that Anne was the middle person. All communication went through her. So it's pretty much any time Ryan wanted to talk to Vito, he'd reach out to Anne, and would then reach out to Vito. February 2015, Anne was arrested, to which Anne replied, no, I'm not. So while she was getting arrested, they're like, you're under arrest. And she's like, no, I'm not. I don't know this woman, I just can't.
Because I said so.
Yeah, because I said so. She was charged with complicity to commit capital murder. Police think that Ryan was just using her, and that Vito's motive was possibly money. Investigators believe that Vito was the fall guy due to the headshots. Vito had no experience with a weapon. Ryan was in the military, and Ryan's former girlfriend actually came forward as well to say that whenever Ryan's parents were mentioned, he would go red in the face and start swearing. She believed he hated his family because he felt like he was the odd one out and was less than Emily. There is no evidence to suggest Ryan was mistreated by his family either. There is a lot of jealousy talk, but I mean, it could be deeper than that, right? Down to being adopted, and maybe there was anger, they fell pregnant, and he hated her because it made him feel like the odd one out, as we said earlier. Some family also think he may have been motivated by inheritance, getting the family home and land and some money when he didn't really have much going on for himself. Lisa also made mention that the family were going to do an extension to their house, and Ryan wanted his parents to hire him to do it, and they didn't because, he is not qualified. So they think he was
pissy about it.
Yeah, annoyed about that as well. Anyway, 2 years after being arrested on December 2016, prosecutors were going to go for the death penalty. However, before the trial, both parties were able to reach an agreement. Life without the possibility of parole. He pleaded guilty to all charges. Oh, and do you remember Anne?
Yes.
Yeah, in May 2017, she pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 22 years in prison. 2 years later, she was considered for an early release due to a terminal illness, which I couldn't find what that illness was. However, it was denied, and the next day she died in prison.
See ya.
To this day, Ryan has not admitted to the murders or expressed any remorse. And that, dear mung beans, is the horrific case of the Champion murders and Ryan, the little bitch face who didn't like feeling inferior, so he decided to slaughter his family who loved him. The end.
Well,
You were on the money about the fall guy. Just guess you didn't think a metheny and everything would be added into the mix.
well, it just made sense. Like when you said that there was like an unknown guy, there was either like someone that Emily had brought with her that could be a love interest, or it could be the person who was committing the crime, and Ryan saved the day for himself while the others died.
I hope he has a not so fun time in prison.
I hope that his bottom has a not so fun time in prison.
Yeah. And on that note,
Goodbye.
goodbye. Oh, I was like, oh my god, what is going on? It's going on. When a small town in Kentucky,
You're right.
because it's throwing me off, like how quick it's going, oh my god. I feel like I'm just talking really quick.
Okay.
Can you?
My little pea brain.
My little pea buddy.
You've got a smooth brain.
KDs.
Hi-dice.
KDs. What?
I was thinking you like Katie's, and I was like, Locati's. It's Locati's in a small town. Sorry, my brain.
It's Locati's.
My brain went, well. I could hear it, and I could see your face drop. But they're all wet mouthed. They're all wet mouthed.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Look, they've got the knowledge, but they've got the sloppy too. You know what I mean? Oh my god. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean?
I think so. She's being
Zakla.
There's a fire within my home.
You just can't make it up.
Shit's fine.
Yeah, shit.
It's just and can't say. You got this. Breathe, sis.